Hello everyone. Welcome to Manifesting Healing Live, Manifesting Healing from Monday. We are here talking again about Black women and workplace bullying. I am Dr. Kimani of Lifting As We Climb Consulting. Thank you so much for joining. Today we'll be having a double dose of our IG Live today. So, our first guest, I see everybody joining in. Hello, everyone. I'm going to add, and we are talking, our guest is from England today. So, it'll be interesting to see and have a conversation about ways that bullying may look differently in another country or maybe not, right? So, welcome to our guest. Hello, Dr. Erica. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy that you're here. So happy that you're here. So, if you could just introduce yourself and just tell a little bit about your work, and then we'll get right into the conversation.
Okay. Well, my name's Dr. Erica Mapule McInnis, and I'm a clinical psychologist in the UK. I've got about 25 years of experience working in the National Health Service, and also I've worked in independent practice.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I know that we've talked, communicated before about the prevalence of Black women in workplace bullying. And we know, unfortunately, that the rates for us are higher than other groups. So we're dealing with racism, sexism, all these different issues. So I'm just curious, and I'm sure the listeners are curious in terms of from your work with Black women in the UK. What does workplace bullying look like? What have you heard the women say in terms of their experiences of workplace bullying?
Well, what we found in the UK is that anything is being used to perpetuate oppression of Black women. So that can be a minor disability, that reasonable aids and adaptations don't seem to be made for,
Mm,
lack of access to training or lack of access to the materials or the roles to be able to do your job to a good enough standard, lack of
mm,
access to the know-how. And Black women are finding that sometimes they're allowed to get so far in a company or an organization, and then they're removed, they're silenced. It's the Black women to then be able to see and learn the
mhm,
strategies from and climb the ladder. And
mhm.
also, their impact is lessened. Sometimes they're being taken out at the prime of their career when they're just about to have publications made, or they're just
Mhm.
about to launch initiatives in organizations, and then those initiatives are launched by other people, or those initiatives don't get to take place.
Right, right, right. So it's kind of like cutting off at the knees, right? So I'm going to undermine you in different ways. I'm not going to let you have access to training. I'm going to sabotage your efforts to progress,
Yeah,
right? In so many different ways. Or I'm going to discount you or try to exclude you in other ways or silence you.
yeah.
So just curious, Dr. Erica, from your experiences with Black women in the UK, how have they typically perceived the experience of workplace bullying? Because I know in America, many times we as Black women, we know that we've had to work twice as hard and, we've been taught we're so strong and, we can't give up and all, right, trying to prove a point. And so we work harder, right, to the point where it starts taking a toll on us physically and psychologically and even spiritually. So
Yeah.
just wondering, what does that look like in the UK for Black women?
It's the same thing, the John Henryism
Yes,
syndrome, where we're
yes,
working twice as hard to get half as far. And some of us
yeah.
actually believe that we're not as good, so that we need to work that extra, that we've got to try harder, that we've got to do more. And then when we
Hmm.
realize that we've got just as much or even more than some of our colleagues, it's at that point that we're taken out.
Ah, interesting. So, two things I want to follow up with you about. So, you talked about like that internalized oppression, like questioning if I'm good enough, right?
Yeah.
So, is it in some ways like the imposter syndrome or different?
Yeah, I think the imposter syndrome can be very common because you don't get the reinforcement, you don't get the colleagues actually saying that you're doing a good job, making you feel that
Hmm.
you're good enough.
Okay.
What's more likely to be is that if you do something good, there's silence, so you don't get the reinforcement. Yeah, and what
Got
is
it.
magnified, if anything goes wrong, it's magnified, or
Mm,
there's a way of trying to blame it on you. So you
Ah,
don't get that reinforcement that makes you feel that you're good. So then
right.
it's harder for you to be confident. And when you're getting microaggressions, macroaggressions, um,
Hmm.
the job is just more difficult because a lot of the
Yeah.
things that would make people feel at ease in the job aren't afforded to you, even if it's somebody to go to coffee with, somebody
Hmm.
to have a chat with, somebody to
Hmm.
offload with. Those sorts of things aren't being afforded because there isn't often a peer group of Black women at a similar level
Right.
who can support each other. Sometimes
Yeah.
when there are Black staff organisations within a networks within an organisation, the range of Black staff that are in that organisation or in that Black staff support network, it may be
Hmm.
that you're the only person at that grade who's there. So
Uh,
when you're moaning about something that's happening to you, it's almost a case of, well, at least you're a house Negro, at least you're in the office. Yeah. The rest
wow.
of us are out here on the plantation. So it can be
Yes.
hard for people to understand how it's just changed in dynamic, but it's the same
Yes.
thing you're getting at a different level. Sometimes the
Yes.
secretarial support isn't there for you. So if you're
Hmm.
having to type the letters yourself, whereas the other staff have access to very competent secretaries who help with things, then there's the extra burden on you. That means that
Yes.
when you then do get onto doing your job, you're half tired because you're having to do all those other roles that aren't supported.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And that sense of like isolation in terms of you can't even share your story with other people who might look like you for various reasons, right?
Yes,
And then you also talked about, and I saw someone in the chat talk about, that we work twice as hard to get half as much. And just
yes,
that frustration and having to keep working work, right? And it was so interesting you said something, Dr. Erica, in terms of, the house Negro as opposed to the field Negro, right?
yeah,
And I was actually fascinated to hear you say that because I know we say that a lot in America, but I had not heard people in the UK, use that
yes.
same reference.
We have the same thing because a lot of us in the UK, we've come from, well, my parents are from Jamaica. So I've
Um,
got ancestors who were on plantations in Jamaica, and there's the same thing
okay.
that happened there. One of the other issues that we have in the UK is that there's such a diversity of Black people in this country. So we've got
Hmm.
people who were born here, like myself, or people
Hmm.
who came here in the last 20 years, people
Hmm.
who come and go, people who it was their parents or grandparents who were born in a different country.
Hmm.
So some people are from the continent of Africa, some people are from the Caribbean, some people are from America. So we've got such a wide range of people who tick the box of being Black
Yeah.
British that
Yeah.
sometimes there can be infighting between the groups. And sometimes people who come from the continent of Africa, they may speak an African language that my parents from Jamaica, I don't speak. So they can actually
Hmm.
be speaking in front of me and I wouldn't even know what they were saying. Yeah.
Right. So you're talking about the whole issue of systemic oppression, colonialism, and how that whole divide and conquer. So
Mm-hmm.
because we have differences, we're divided in that sense of, well, you're not like this or you're not like that because you don't understand. And so that keeps us separated and,
Yes.
and, and really diminishes our power in terms of
Yes.
unifying.
Yeah, so you can be in a workplace with other Black people, but if they're not the same type of Black people, then you're not getting the support. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Which can even be more isolating, right?
Yes.
So if you see
Yes.
somebody who looks like you want to go to that person and you feel a sense of kinship or trust, right? But then we recognize, in terms of the quote from Zora Neale Hurston, not all skin folk are kinfolk. So
Yeah.
just because they're Black doesn't necessarily mean that you can trust them, which can be very harmful. And
Yes.
sometimes it can hurt more than if it's somebody who does not look like you.
Well, yeah, you can have situations where, unfortunately, they're trying to sell you out to the slave master, which is the boss, yeah, to advance their own position. So it's not that they
Hmm.
necessarily want to dismantle a system of oppression or white supremacy in a workplace, but they just want to improve their position within it. And if they use you as another Black person to improve their position, then that's the strategy. And I'm not saying that happens with all
Hmm.
Black communities, but
Hmm.
I've had people come to me and say to me that that's been an unfortunate experience. And also,
Right.
there's been the experience that sometimes people don't get the support from their own community because until you've actually experienced the oppression, people can feel that, oh, it isn't that bad. We
Hmm.
have race relation laws, we have the Equalities Act.
Mm,
Things are much better now than in the 1960s. We
right.
don't have enslavement in chains. So what could you be talking about? You've got a certain position. You're a doctor.
Mm,
I'm really humbled by the phrase by Dr. Amos Wilson, where he says that we can't earn our way out of racism. We can't perform our way out of racism. But some of us
wow.
have to actually prove that to ourselves, and that's when we
Yes,
can get into the John Henryism.
yes,
And
yes,
yeah,
yes. Exactly. And also thinking about, in many ways, people may think that you can kind of work your way or earn your way out of racism in terms of your education level or your profession or your financial status. And that is absolutely not true,
yeah,
right? So if
yeah.
anything, you may actually encounter more pushback because of your status. And actually, there's an author. I don't know if you've read the book. It's called White Rage, and it talks
Mm,
about what infuriates some people so much is Black people who do have a certain level of stature, who are intelligent, who are shattering the stereotypes of what it means to be a Black person. And there's immense pushback on that because it shatters all those stereotypes. And
yeah.
so then it's an attempt to even try further to hold you back. And so I
Yes.
think that's what many of us have encountered. Now, I want to go back to something you said. You said sometimes when Black women try to elevate, that they're taken out. Can you
Yes.
can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, people have come to me and told me about how they've been, sidelined from positions. So there's been maybe changes in organisations where organisations have been reconfigured, and a post has been lost, and the post that's been lost is the post that was occupied by a Black woman. Uh,
Wow.
so it
Wow.
just kind of
So it's
like,
a strategic way to kind of block you out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And
But
again, I hear about that in America too.
one of the strategies that we've got and that I've advised people who come to me for support is to say that is a bit taking inspiration from Imhotep, who was a ancient Egyptian god who had multiple skills. Yeah. So if
Mhm.
you've got skills in multiple areas and then you can actually move, if they take you out of one area, you've got the skills to move into another area,
Mhm.
then the impact is less. So I've always
Yeah.
kept my government job as well as a private practice, to say that if something goes wrong in one area, then you've got the other area. So we can't rely on the system
Yeah.
that enslaved us to save us or to keep us secure.
Exactly.
We've got to have our own systems as well.
Exactly. And one of the benefits is that we do have choice. To some degree, we didn't have as much choice a while ago. So that is some evidence of progress. But the whole post-racial society, that's not true. But we are able to do certain things. And I think it's so important that we recognize as Black people, as Black women, that we do have choices. Because when we don't think we'd have choices, then the depression, the helplessness, the
Yeah.
hopelessness, the anxiety, all these different things. So
Mm-hmm.
maintaining that sense of, oh, I can do my own thing. I don't
Yeah.
have to rely on this. And I think, Dr. Erica, you're also speaking of like a generational shift too, in terms of, I know that like my mother, has a different way of understanding jobs and private practices. So her perspective is you get a job, you stay in that job until you retire, you get good benefits, you, all these
Mm-hmm.
different things, but not understanding there's other ways. You don't have to be stuck in certain systems just because of concerns about healthcare, right? Because if you're being harmed in the process, then that means that your health is being compromised. So it's like, it's a
Yeah.
crazy dynamic about health insurance, but the job might be killing
Yeah.
you. Right?
But sometimes
So,
I've come across women who strategically taken time out of the workplace for recovery
hmm,
time because we sometimes need that. And one of the
yeah.
other features of having working in multiple settings is that if your boss tries to gaslight you, which is a way of saying that you're not as good and running you down without sufficient evidence. If you know
Hmm,
that the day before you did a court report that was well received by
hmm.
several barristers, then you're going to kind of like query a manager at work saying that you can't write coherently. So it's about if you're then
Wow.
working in other areas as well, yeah, and demonstrating your skills, it means that
Yeah.
you've got that inner confidence to be able to know thyself, and you know a
Yeah.
little bit more about to say that how is this genuine feedback,
Yes.
an area that I do need to improve on, and how is it something that I mean, you then value the person saying that, but you don't put as much weight on it.
Yes. Yes. So you're talking about when we receive feedback, it's like this complicated filtering process. So what part of this might be accurate? Okay, do I have evidence that counters that?
Yeah,
Okay. And then the other part you said, oh my God, as you were talking, I literally got chills because a lot of the things that you're talking about in terms of gaslighting, causing Black women to question ourselves, I hear it so much. And it's so pervasive in
yeah,
terms of that sense of the intention is to make you question your worth and to
yeah,
question your value. And if we don't have that core sense of who we are and our value, our worth, then that can be devastating. And you also talked about, not all Black people, some Black people are supportive in the workplace, but
yeah,
then we look at like the range of internalized oppression, right?
yeah,
So we have some who are struggling and who may try to, see you as a threat or
mhm,
competition and try to pull you down, to others who are working together and we're really trying to lift each other as we're moving
yeah,
forward. So it's like a range, but also knowing that if you don't have that firm foundation, if you're not grounded in your own worth,
mm,
this can really be devastating.
yeah.
So have you encountered women, Black women in the UK, in which that has happened, like that sense of devastation and true like overwhelm about
Mm.
workplace bullying? And what does that look like?
Yeah, people have come up to me and shared their experience of being devastated when they've, gone and read all the right books, they've gone and done all the right courses, they've gone and got all the qualifications, and they're still being treated as less than. It can be very
Right.
devastating, particularly if
Yes.
they've developed the view that, oh, if I just get to be better, then I will be treated okay. And when they
Yes.
realize that, that can be very, very, devastating. So
Yes.
what I've encouraged people to do is to, yes, you've got to listen to feedback as well, but if you can
Hmm.
do things in another setting, then you can think about, well, what is it in that setting that means that I struggle to perform when I can perform in other settings? And
Hmm.
also, I've advised women to be part of different wellness groups, even if they're wellness groups online or kind of like communities, which can
Hmm.
encourage you, can make you feel good about yourself, that you
Hmm.
can have another way of thinking about yourself. That if you're thinking to yourself
Right.
that, okay, then, I am struggling in this area, but I'm doing okay and I'm doing well in that area. So keep
Yes.
your other interests, your other pursuits, because it can be very easy to spend all your time focused on work, and then you don't
Hmm.
spend your time doing the other things that can make you well enough for work or give you
Right.
that good feeling that can
Yes.
mean that you go into work with a spring in your step, knowing that you've
Yes.
just achieved in another area.
Yes. So what are you doing in your private life to maintain that sense of wellness as you
Yeah,
go into the fire, right?
yeah,
So what are you doing so that you feel that sense of affirmation, you feel supported by other people? So as you go in, you're walking in with like those people are right behind you, right? And I
yes,
also call it like a sense of psychological armoring. So as you're walking into that place and you're getting all this negativity at you, it's kind of like you're able to repel it to some point. Now, you
yes,
can't totally repel it because some of it does come in.
hmm,
But, when we have supportive circles, we're able to process that. Or
yes,
if we're in therapy, we're able to talk to our therapist and process that and own, okay, what part of this was maybe me or what part of that is the system? And then
hmm,
what can I do about that? So you're really talking about the importance of a life work balance, because
yeah,
I think what happens to many people is that their job becomes their identity and they
mm,
get so wrapped up into what happened at work. Like everybody in their family knows all their coworkers' names or their supervisors'
yeah,
names. And so
yeah,
it becomes their identity and they have a hard time distancing that. And so the importance of having that boundary. But, I want to say something too in terms of what you said before, in terms of, when someone who's very competent, well accomplished, has a certain degree of stature, does something, and then a supervisor may say, oh, your writing is not up to par. even though you know to even get to where you are, your
Yeah.
writing has to be stellar, right?
Yeah.
And you receive feedback from other people who are receiving the reports that their writing is stellar. So
Yeah.
again, that's an attempt, like a systemic approach to trying to kind of cut you down and put you in your place.
Yeah,
And
well,
I
it's very
think,
much the stereotype that black people can't write and can't read and write, but
yes,
sometimes they're not clear about what they're expecting from us in that environment. So, are they
yeah,
expecting a summary? Are they expecting a full report? Are they expecting key concepts? If you're
right,
not told what they're expecting, then what you do is either always too much or too little, but never
yeah.
the right amount, because the feedback loop, a helpful feedback loop, or even giving you worked examples, isn't being given to black women.
So it's not constructive feedback. So it's
No.
basically feedback to destroy you in some ways or to make you question yourself or doubt yourself. It's not to help build you up because we
Yes.
all recognize feedback is helpful. It helps us grow. But we
Mm.
know deep down when something is not being shared with us in a way that's constructive, when it's being, it's destructive. And so how to distinguish that?
Yes, some women have come to me and told me that their supervisions or their one-to-one with their managers, instead of it being a way of improving them, they've experienced it as a way of managers using it as an opportunity to abuse them and pull them down. And just
Yikes.
make, yeah, so the situation hasn't been handled in a constructive way. So kind
Oh,
of like I often advise people about things such as asking for an agenda in advance, making it an action meeting to say, okay, then if there is that issue, and what can we do about it? Because if we are teachable, if we are perfectible as
hmm,
black people, okay, if there is an issue, what support can be given for me to be able
hmm.
to improve in that area? Yeah.
Right, right,
So,
right.
it's about how do we then make those conversations constructive and
Yeah.
enabling?
Yes, yes, yes. So it's interesting. Our guest last week talked about it's kind of, I think she said like upward managing or something like
Yes,
that.
managing
Like,
up. Yes, yeah.
yes. So how do you kind of take control or structure the meeting so that you have some degree of voice? However, we do know that sometimes bullies can like sabotage that, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So you've talked in many different ways about ways to manifest healing and ways you've supported Black women in manifesting healing, right? So I'm wondering if we could talk a bit also about workplace cultures in terms of bullying, because we know in many ways that environments support bullying cultures in terms of
Yeah.
toxic environments. The bullies or the bully or the bullies are not checked. And so they just keep running amok and
Yeah.
then they seem to think they can get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
can you
often they
talk a
are
little
allowed
bit
to.
about that?
Often they are allowed to. It's about somebody once explained to me is this image of kind of like going into a cage where people are throwing bananas at a monkey, and somebody else comes into the cage and starts doing that, and then says, "Well, why are we throwing bananas at the monkeys?" Well, this is what you do. This is what we've always done. So people coming into the organisation then start following that culture. And when black people are being oppressed, black women in particular, sometimes management
Hmm.
turn a blind eye to it. So they
Mm,
don't actually do things. It's acts of omission and commission. So
yeah,
acts where they don't step in to help a situation, as well as sometimes when something is being done. So
that
sometimes
is profound.
the culture becomes one where black women are disrespected. And recently, I've been exposed to, as well as gaslighting that can go on, sea
Hmm.
lioning can go on as well.
What was that called?
Sea lioning,
What is
where
that?
it's a concept where somebody may make a statement which is quite an outlandish statement, such as all lives matter. When you say Black Lives Matter, all lives
Okay,
matter, and then
okay.
the black woman spends a lot of time explaining why in particular we may need to focus on black lives, and that's focusing on black lives isn't saying that we're not focusing on white lives and all other types of lives.
Hmm.
And then when you're giving all your energy to having to do that explaining, one, it wears you out. It distracts you from what you're meant to be doing.
Right.
And three, somebody walking past can then say, "Oh gosh, she's always angry about something. She's always going on about
Oh,
something. She's always talking. We're always hearing her point of view." And it's a strategy that
uh-huh.
we use, sea lining, to kind of like wear you out, as
Oh,
a
wow.
Black person. So yeah, so Google it, it's in the literature, but it's part of the strategies that are used to oppress us in the workplace. And
Yes,
knowing about the strategies can be one way of avoiding the impact of them. And I quite
yes,
like a model that Dr. Shelley Harrells has talked about. And I don't know whether I've got a few moments just to mention that.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, she says that there's a 5 Ds. So the first D can be dehumanization, where they can treat Black women in a dehumanizing way,
Mm,
so that you're treated less than human, or kind of like shamed in public, or
mhm,
not given the support or the information. Disempowerment, so more junior staff are not taught to respect you. And when you go and report more junior staff to say that there's an issue and the management structure doesn't support you, there's disconnection, so you can be isolated from your colleagues, put in a different office, or put to be far away from the equipment that you need. Destruction, so sometimes when there's something that you do that is good, it can be
mhm,
mashed up by other colleagues, or even if you think from a history point of view, the good things that Black people have done is often not reported in an organisation
right,
or reported in
right.
society. So there's the destruction of us as being people of worth.
Mhm,
And also, I've added to the 5 Ds by Dr. Shelley P. Harrell, 2 more: distraction. So to tie us up in arguments, to tie up our energy in always
yes,
fighting against
yes,
the next thing that they accuse us of, or that
yes,
they put in front of us. So
yes,
then when you're giving your energy to that, you haven't got your energy to other things. So a lot of the
yes.
time we're having to fight really hard just to stay on the spot, where other
Mhm.
people can put that energy into fighting to advance themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
and
Wow.
and then the other
Yeah.
one is
Uh-huh.
dispiriting, and that we are dispirited, so we're kind of like treated as less than, which can
Mhm.
make us feel dispirited. And then
Yeah.
when we then maybe stop bothering or trying as hard because we're dispirited, that then
Mhm.
gives them the reason to say that, well, we need to bully Black women to work because otherwise they're
Mm.
lazy and they don't do it. But really, we've been dispirited, and that's why we've lost
Wow.
the motivation. Because if you're constantly doing the work and not getting the credit for it, or being treated as less than, um,
Mhm.
there can be a time when people then give up trying,
Yeah.
because they feel that they're not treated as worth. And
It's
then
learned helplessness, right?
yes, yeah,
You keep beating down, beating down, beating down. You just kind of give up at a certain point.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And wow, that was so profound too. So Dr. Shelley Harrell, we love her. That's actually how I met Dr. Erica, is that we are part of a group, Soulfulness Meditation for Liberation, which was created by Dr. Shelley Harrell. And she is my dissertation chair and a mentor, and we love her. So thank you for uplifting her. And just thinking about on all the different levels, how systemic that is in terms of ways to silence us, control us, undermine us. And you talked about so many things in the sense of things that are happening to distract us, not only outside of our community. So like when people do things to us, but also within our community, there's a lot of distraction. You talked about that earlier. So what type of Black person are you? So
Mm-hmm.
then that's a distraction. And then when we think about, I know in America, I don't know what the media is in UK, but in America, there's a lot of very negative reality shows about Black people. And then that becomes a distraction because many people then start thinking that these people are a reflection of who they are, or a reflection of other Black people, whatever. And it distracts us from focusing on what are the real issues at hand and how do we need to come together to address those issues for all of us. So
Mm-hmm.
all these distractions are going on. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Dr. Erica, you've shared so many gems in terms of how Black women can manifest healing. As we're winding down, what are some final words of wisdom that you could have for maybe a Black woman who is experiencing workplace bullying in terms of manifesting healing?
Well, one thing that I find useful is meditation, and that's been really helpful. So sometimes you can't take yourself out of an oppressive situation, but if you can take your mind out of it to have a
Mm-hmm.
rest, maybe go to the restroom or the bathroom or just go for a walk and have a meditative moment,
Mm-hmm.
that can refresh you, that you can then go back into that situation calmer. Because one of the strategies of oppression can be to get us always agitated.
Mm-hmm.
We're hyper vigilant. We're either just getting over the last attack or looking out for the next attack. So there's
Yes.
cortisol, the chemical for stress, always going around your body. And if you're
Yes.
always on alert, it can mean that you then don't take in information very well. You can maybe misunderstand things, and your capacity to deal with the situation may be compromised, and you
Yes.
experience overload, which is sometimes what bullies are trying to do. So
Yes.
they start off bullying you and distracting you so that your work performance goes down, and then they say, well,
Hmm.
then they then get you to be what they accuse you of doing
It's a
in the first
self-fulfilling
place.
prophecy, right?
Yeah, by the
Yes.
time they're finished running you down. So it's about how do we find strategies to be able to go and recharge our batteries. So I find
Yes.
that meditation works very well, and the soulfulness model that Dr. Shelley Harrell has launched, and there's other people who've got African centered meditation models. I find them quite useful. Also,
Hmm.
not being afraid to take time out.
Hmm.
Black women have come to me and told me that sometimes they need to find ways to take time out to rest, recalibrate the
Hmm.
body, and then they can go back there with energy. Because sometimes if
Yes.
you're staying in there, keep going, you can end up burning yourself out. So sometimes you need
Absolutely.
to take a break before you break down. Yeah.
Yes.
The warning
Absolutely.
light on the car engine is kind of like flashing and showing
Yes.
that
Pay
there's a
attention to that light, flashing,
yeah,
flashing.
yeah. And
Exactly.
it's hard to find ways to do that at times. But then if we strategize and say that is going to be something that needs to happen at some point, it may be about
Yes.
even having a saving plan that you can save up money for the time that you may need to take a career break, when sometimes organizations allow you to take a career break where you can take a couple of months out and they still keep your
Yes.
job there. You can't work, but you can live off the money that you've saved up.
Right.
Because you need to take a break from that toxic environment to recharge your batteries. And also
Right.
the idea of you can always leave as well, because sometimes we hang on in there until we eventually have to leave, and then
Yes.
we're so worn out. The
Yes.
self that then goes into another job is a self that is quite beaten down, quite worn out, quite tired,
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
starting your next job not from the best position. When
Right.
you can leave when you're at your best, I see it's like an Olympic or an athlete retiring when they're at the top of their game, as opposed to
Hmm.
waiting until they start to lose races and they're not as good and then retiring. The memory of them isn't going to be as good.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it may be about finding the time when you do then decide to move on, if that's your choice. Because I never
Yes.
judge people who come to see me whether they want to stay, because sometimes you've got to stay and tough it out. um,
Hmm.
Sometimes it's about then teaching the system that they can't pressure us and get rid of us,
Yes.
because if we
Yes.
do all go, then they learn that they can just move us around, like selling us from one plantation to another plantation. We then
Ooh.
move
Yes.
ourselves around different plantations because they turn the
Wow.
heat on us. So sometimes
Wow.
it is about sticking it out. They can realize that we're not a pushover, and then they calm themselves down because they realize they're not getting what they wanted out of it. Or sometimes
Right.
it's strategic. We do want to move, or sometimes you can just take time out and then go back in there.
Yes, yes, yes. So, in terms of, the mindset, because I think a lot of times Black women, we get in this mode of thinking, you're not going to push me out of here. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to prove a point. I'm going to prove a point. But then it's killing us. So that's the one thing. The
Yeah.
other thing is that many times we have not been taught the importance of rest, and that
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to take rest. And taking a moment to rest is not you're quitting. You're not quitting.
Mm-hmm.
You're just taking a moment to rest. And so, because it buys into that stereotype that many of us get caught up into, is we need to prove to other people we're not lazy. We need
Mm-hmm.
to prove to other people that Black people are smart. So we're the representative of the Black community. That's a lot of weight,
Yeah.
right? And so then you're carrying all this weight, but you're again harming yourself. And the part about, many times we feel the need to stay in certain jobs for various reasons, financial reasons, maybe you've invested a lot of time, in that certain organization, but also that sense, like you just said, of, if they continue with this behavior and they run Black people out,
Hmm.
then we don't want to support that either. But I
Yes.
think it's also thinking about how can we, uh, bring awareness in terms of the truth of what's happening in these organizations so this stuff keeps happening. So how are we getting at the root cause? Well, we have to be strong and healthy for that. So
Yeah.
therapy, supports that we support one another in that process, but it's so many different layers and it's very complicated. It's very complicated.
Hmm.
So as we're winding down, Dr. Erica, it's just so amazing to me how many parallels there are between the experience of workplace bullying for Black women in America and the UK, and I can
Well,
imagine throughout the world.
well, the thing is, the system of white supremacy, it started off in Europe, and then they went and they expanded it, yeah, to their colonies. America was a colony. They wrote books on how to tame the Negro and
Right.
how to make them subordinate.
Yes.
So I live in the belly of the beast in the slaughterhouse, yeah. And this is where they developed their theories and then went out and refined them and perfected them in their colonies, because America was a
Yes.
colony before it got its independence. So it's no wonder that we've got the same things that we've got going on here, going on
Yes.
over there. But sometimes it just takes a different form to it. But it's
Yes.
similar things that are happening over here.
Yes, and I think it's important that we communicate about these similar experiences because we don't, fall into the trap that there's something wrong with me, this only happens to me or only happens in America. No, this happens to Black women globally. And so for us to have more conversations about it, because then we can come up with more strategies
Yeah.
about ways to heal, to learn about different options we have. And I also want to highlight that I just read an article recently talking about the rates of heart attack for Black people, Black women,
Hmm.
between the age, I think it's 35 to 54, has been increasing, but the rates in other groups have been decreasing. And they talked about the impact of environmental stress. And so it's
Yes.
so important for us to recognize that. And again, how do we maintain our sanity, our well-being in
Mm.
environments that may not be supporting it?
Yeah, because even sometimes you get places where even black people don't treat other black people with respect, whereas they would treat a white person with respect because
Right,
they've learned from white people to disrespect black people. So
right.
it's quite a pervasive situation that we're finding,
Yeah,
and it's not easy wherever you are in the world.
yes,
But yet
absolutely.
still we rise.
Yes, still we rise.
Yeah,
Exactly. Still we rise. Absolutely.
yeah,
Because we stand on the shoulders of ancestors. The
yeah.
fact that we are here today
Mm.
shows the power of our resilience as a people and ways that we can tap into. Just so like we think about the generational transmission of trauma, we
Yeah,
also have the generational transmission of healing. And
yeah.
so how do we tap into that and really connect to our cultural forms of healing?
Yeah,
So I
another
appreciate
point
you saying that.
to mention before we finish is that sometimes I often think about it as what is the universe trying to tell us? And sometimes you can have problems in one environment because the universe is trying to tell you that you're better suited to another environment. And if a problem didn't happen in that environment, you wouldn't then move on and realize your worth in that other environment. So don't always think of it as as giving in or giving up or being run out of an organization. Sometimes it's
Right.
actually a gift for you to be able to leave there, to be able to excel somewhere else that may be a better place for the universe to put you.
Yes, it's so funny, Dr. Erica. I just did a post, I think it was yesterday, is that sometimes people think that they're,
Yeah,
pushing you down, right?
yeah,
But God is elevating you to another level. Like
yeah.
you're not even there. You're like way there. They can't even touch you. And so
Mm,
sometimes being open to what is being revealed to you, sitting, resting, reflecting, meditating, what is being revealed to me in this moment that maybe this is not the place for me. Are
mm-hmm,
there other places where I can go or be where I am affirmed and I am
mm-hmm,
respected?
yeah.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Erica, I wonder if you could share with the listeners if there are any resources that you have to offer as well.
Oh, I should have brought them with me. There's Know Thyself Adinkra cards that I created, which has 50 Adinkra symbols in a deck of cards, which can be useful for just for meditating, for inspiration. So they've got things that are relevant to traditional African culture, such as divinity of Mother Earth, the power of God, interconnectedness. So that's a useful resource. Another resource that I have got with me is the African Centered Wellness Journal, which has got over 150 quotes from people of African ancestry. So
Awesome.
when you're doing your journaling, you can have inspiration from people of African ancestry. And then also included in this this journal, you've got your soulful colouring, so that you can take a moment
Oh, beautiful.
to just to colour and just to relax the mind. We talked about rest,
Yes.
and it's got worksheets in it. So it's got it here. That's the 7 F's to improve your life, and proverbs that you can write down to improve your day. So this is available on Etsy, Amazon, and my own website, nubiawellnessandhealing.co.uk. So they're resources that I've put together, because when Black women in particular have come to me, they've said that we need resources to keep ourselves going on a regular basis. So you can be in a meeting and you're making notes, but you get to the bottom of the page and you get to a kind of like a proverb at the end. So there's one in here that says that Black women, we've got the ability to be able to get down, get through, and get over anything. And that can
Yes.
inspire you when you're there in a meeting, and so you're being fed what you're going through, whatever you're going through. Again, with your
Yes.
Adinkra cards, you can take a symbol and you can carry it with you. Know Thyself Adinkra cards, and it can give you inspiration for your day.
Yes. And it just speaks to the importance of cultural forms of healing. So connecting to our culture, and also thinking about, when you are reflecting on what other Black women have said, or what other Black women have done, or that motivation from our history.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the ancestors are surrounding you or offering support to you in that space. Even though if they're not physically with you, you
Yeah.
feel the sense of they're supporting you, they're uplifting you. How
Yes.
powerful. So people can access your resources, Etsy, Amazon, and your website.
Yes.
Can you repeat your website again?
Yes. Nubia Wellness and healing.co.uk.
Awesome. Awesome.
Nubia
Awesome.
Wellness and Healing.co.uk.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Erica, for joining us. I know we had to figure out the time thing. I was a little confused about the times, but we made it happen. We made it happen. I'm so very thankful that you took the time to speak, and just, again, just seeing how many commonalities that we have for Black women globally in terms of workplace bullying, but also keeping that sense of hope that healing is possible. And
Yeah.
it's important that we really center our healing.
Yeah.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just want to tell the listeners, thank you so much for joining Manifesting Healing Monday. We will be having another guest today. We're having a double dose today. So at our regular time, we'll be having another guest, Dr. Rochelle Robinson, who is a school psychologist in New York. So we will be having the last live, I think, talking about this topic. So that, again, is 9 p.m. today, Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific. And also, if you're in the UK, I don't know how to convert the time right now, but if you are able to join us later today, I think it's like 2 in the morning or something like that, right?
Well, we can always check you out on YouTube, your YouTube channel. Do you put them on
Yeah,
your channel?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you can check us out on YouTube. So all the videos from the Black Women and Workplace Bullying series are available on YouTube. My channel, Lifting as We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. So again, thank you, Dr. Erica. Everyone, have a good rest of your day. And I hope that you're able to tune in a little bit later as we have a follow-up discussion.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.